and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Sunday afternoon, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and if you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. Thank you, Keveron. Appreciate that. I might be another year older according to the daily calendar because today is my official birthday, but I feel the same as I felt last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. So if I couldn't look on the calendar and know that today's my birthday, I wouldn't know it because I feel the same. And I look, hey there, Austin. Glad to have you here. But yes, Keveron, today is my official birthday, so I appreciate that. It's been a fantastic day. And if you missed SWA last night, you missed a phenomenal benefit show. Our actual regular monthly show comes up 2 weeks from yesterday on July the 12th. SWA Resurrection. Doors will open at 6 o'clock. Bell time will be 7 o'clock. And of course, I'll talk more about that as it gets here because I actually have two wrestling shows that day. And yes, Austin, I did have some cake. I've tried to cut back on my sweets, not because I'm trying to lose weight or not because I got a bad report, nothing like that, just because I love my sweets and eating sweets is expensive and it can be expensive. I could go to the store and spend 20 bucks on chocolate and have it all gone in one day. So for that reason and that reason alone, I've tried to cut back on it, but I still feel fantastic. But I feel on your birthday, it's okay to have some, and my grandmother made me some chocolate chip cake, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I ate some and then brought some home as well. But today I want to talk some college football. I want to do another 2025 early season preview, and I want to explain why I picked this team. But before I get into who I'm going to talk about and why I picked them and what I think their record might be, I saw this a couple of hours ago and I thought, man, you talking about making you feel old, and then it makes you wonder, who will be next in line. Yes, I did, Austin, and I don't know his exact age, but I would say, if I had to guess, that Charles Robinson has to be close to 60 because I can remember watching him ref 30 years ago. And 30 years ago when he was reffing for WCW, he'd already been reffing for 5 or 6 years. So it's not like he was 18, 19 years old. So if he is 60, then I was right. But I was going to guess 60. I can recall when he had a wrestling match in WCW years ago, and they called him Little Nate, and he even had a robe like Ric Flair would wear. So I knew if he wasn't 60, he was knocking the door down, but he still looks phenomenal and moves around the ring like he's still 30 years old. So hopefully when I get 60, I'll be able to ref and move like Charles Robinson does. But I saw this earlier, and it was talking about all the old school coaches that have names you would know, even if you're a casual college football fan. And it's talking about your childhood being over. And these are names that if you're probably 25 or older, but I know at least 30 or older, but probably 25 or older, you're going to know every one of these names. You may not, off the top of your head, know when they coached or where they coached, but you'll know who they are. And none of them are current head coaches in college football. Nick Saban's gone. Pete Carroll's gone. Urban Meyer's gone. Jim Tressel's gone. Jimbo Fisher's gone. Ed Orgeron is gone. Bob Stoops is gone. Steve Spurrier's gone. Lloyd Carr is gone. Frank Beamer's gone. Les Miles is gone. Bill Snyder's gone. Chris Peterson's gone. And David Shaw is gone. And the reason why I said none of those coaches are, coaching now in college football is because Pete Carroll, he's still coaching in the NFL. And, Bob Stoops has tried to keep his career alive in, a couple of different coaching capacities, like the rebirth of the USFL, but he's no longer, in college football. But Steve Spurrier will always be around because of different interviews, he's going to do. He did one the other day talking about, Arch Manning. He's always going to do those because Steve Spurrier is one of those that's always, going to say something. And Urban Meyer's still around because of the, Fox Saturday pregame show, which I watch every week. If I'm going to watch a pregame show, I'm usually working on Saturdays now, but if not, if I watch one, it's going to be the Fox pregame show. I'm not watching College Game Day, but Urban Meyer, at least as of, this past year, was still, one of the hosts on the Fox Saturday pregame show. And we're probably, going to see Frank Beamer or hear his name on a regular basis as long as his son is coaching at South Carolina. But it makes you wonder, all those coaches I just named, who are some of the current coaches that you think in 20 years, people are going to know their name. People are going to recognize their name. And yes, Austin, I try to watch it as much as I can. I stay so busy, I don't get to watch it all the time. But I at least read the results to know what's going on, and then I watch the premium live events. But I stay so busy, I just can't commit myself to watching TV every week. Because then if you miss one episode, you're like, dang. And then you feel like you've got to miss something else to get caught up, and it's just too aggravating. And that's why I've never liked to watch hour-long TV shows like, Law and Order and back in the day, X-Files, shows like that, because all the shows they're like a daily soap opera. They're all tuned together, so if you miss one, you're out of touch and you're lost. Hey there, 310 man, glad to have you here on this Sunday. My guess would be, out of the current coaches that I say, you'll know their names in 20 years if you're, new to the sport or just a young person. One is Kirk Ferentz, because Kirk Ferentz has coached at Iowa for almost 30 years, and he's still there, and he's the winningest coach all time at Iowa. And he says as long as he feels good, he's going to coach, and he looks the same now as he looked 20 years ago. I don't know how he feels, but he looks the same, and he says he feels fine, and he says he loves doing it, and as long as he feels fine, he'll do it. So he might coach till he's 80. But, Iowa very rarely has a bad season. They're consistently 8-4 about every year. So as long as you're a consistent 9-3, 8-4 team, you're going to be on TV, on the national game 4 to 5 times a year. You're going to be in some big-time bowl game about every year. And Kirk Ferentz is your all-time winningest coach. So, that's the name people are going to know. And then, of course, people will know Kirby Smart because he's coaching at Georgia, which is one of the, biggest name profile programs in college football. And I think people are going to know the name of Dabo Swinney because, for one, even though his government name is not Dabo, everybody knows him as Dabo. And when you've got a name like Dabo, nobody's going to forget that. Everybody's going to know that name. Plus, Dabo's a guy that, as long as he's been there, a lot of the media likes to overhype what he says, even though there's always reason behind what he says and there's always truth behind what he says. But, you're talking about a guy that took over a program that spent the better part of 20 years in mediocrity, and now they're a consistent top 10 program, and he's won national championships, and he may end up winning more by the time it's all said and done. So I think that'll be a name people to recognize. And, if Lincoln Riley could ever win anything, people will know that name for one. Lincoln's not a name that you hear all the time. And for two, there have been so many quarterbacks now, that have made a name for themselves in the NFL that everybody gives the credit to Lincoln Riley for what he done with them. But the problem is, so far in his coaching career, it seems like every year it's a letdown. Every year at Oklahoma, they're supposed to be a national title contender, and it never happened. Then he left and went to USC, and so far every year at USC, they're supposed to be a top 5, top 10 team. And this is the year USC comes back to the promised land, and it's not close. So right now, Lincoln Riley leaves a name in your head, but it's for the bad reasons. It's a guy that brings in all this talent, turns quarterbacks around, but gets on the field and he can't win. Whereas with Kirby Smart and with Dabo and the Kirk Ferentz, you're going to remember them from their winning days, from when they won. And most of the coaches I just named, they may not have won a national championship. Some did, but not all of them did. But they all were known for at least having some success as a head coach. Lincoln Riley right now would get recalled and remembered for, having success, but never getting close to his potential. And again, I'm hearing great things about USC this year, but until I see it, I don't believe it. But today, we're going to talk about Illinois. And the reason why I'm bringing up Illinois is because the other day I saw a top 25 list for the upcoming season, and I don't exactly remember where Illinois was, but they were ranked. And then I remember hearing somebody on the radio this past week saying that Illinois was a 10-win team, and I thought, I don't know if I believe that. So I pulled their schedule out, and I looked at it, and I thought, well, since I'm already looking at it and thinking about Illinois, I might as well make that my next 2025 early season preview. So, without further ado, let's talk some Illinois. Of course, their quarterback is still Luke Altmaier. I believe he'll be 23 in the middle of the season. And he's one of those guys that seems like he's played college football since about 1985, but he's their quarterback. He was there last year. And Austin, I watch wrestling news occasionally, but I try not to watch it too much because a lot of times they ruin storylines by telling you where something's going. So then when it happens, well, you're like, well, I knew that was coming. But then if they ruin it for you and they tell you it's going to happen and then it don't, and you wanted it to happen, then you're mad because you thought it was going to happen, you thought it was coming, and it didn't. So I try not to watch it too much because when I watch wrestling, I want to really be surprised by what I'm seeing. And if these wrestling news programs and websites tell you what's coming and ruin it for you, it just destroys the shock value because you're having to act like you're shocked. And in reality, you're not shocked. So Luke Altmaier is their quarterback. Of course, Brett Bielema is their head coach. Barry Lunney Jr. is their offensive coordinator again. And Aaron Henry is their defensive coordinator again. And if Brett Bielema is your head coach, you're going to run the ball. And they've got Caden Fegan, Josh McCray, Aiden Laffery, and Khalil Valentine, all four running backs that returned from the 2024 Illinois football season. They open up this season on a Friday night against Western Illinois. That's on August 29th. And if you look, today is June 29th, which means that Illinois and Western Illinois play exactly 2 months from today. And of course, there's a week 0 the Saturday before that. So we're actually a little bit less than 2 months from the beginning of the season. And since Tuesday is July 1st, you can wake up on Tuesday and say, hey, we've got some real football returning next month, because Tuesday, when it's July 1st, next month in August, you'll have college football starting and high school football starting, and of course NFL preseason, but that doesn't count. That's why I said you have real football coming. So wake up on Tuesday morning and say, hey, hot diggity dog, football returns next month. Game 2 for Illinois comes up September the 6th against Duke, and then September 13th they play Western Michigan, and that of course is their 3 non-conference games, and I personally think they go 3-0 in those non-conference games. I think Duke will probably be the biggest threat in the non-conference slate, but I don't expect Duke to be as good as they were last year. Maybe I'm wrong. I know they brought in the transfer quarterback from Tulane, but, you know, to go from Tulane to Duke, that's a whole different ball game, and then it's the second game of the season. So even if he is as good at Tulane, you know, he's that good now at Duke, he's not going to be that good. At least I don't think he will, beginning of the season. So I expect Duke to take a small step back this year. So I think Illinois wins all 3 of their non-conference games. They open up conference season on September 20th against Indiana. USC on September 27th. Heading into October the 4th against Purdue. October the 11th, Ohio State. And then in week 8, they have their first bye week of the season. Coming off the bye week, they play Washington on October 25th. And then they play Rutgers on November the 1st. And then they have their second bye week. So they play 7 games and they're off. And they play 2 games and they're off. And then they come back on November the 15th against Maryland. November 22nd, Wisconsin. And November 29th, wrapping up the season against Northwestern on Thanksgiving weekend. Now, as I said, I think they win all 3 of their non-conference games. But in conference, I've got them losing to USC on September 27th. Ohio State on October the 11th. And Washington on October 25th. So I've got them 3-0 out of conference, 6-3 in conference, and then 9-3 overall, and not quite as good as a double-digit win season. At least in the regular season, it could be a double-digit win season if you go 9-3 and then win your bowl game. But you know, they're picked to win 10 games during the regular season, and that's why I wanted to check out their schedule to see if I agree with that. And I've got them at 9 wins. I almost had them at 8 wins and had them losing to Wisconsin, because honestly, really, truly, and maybe he turns it around this year, I don't know, but I really, truly thought that Luke Fickell would have brought Wisconsin further along than he has thus far. Now, maybe this year Wisconsin goes 12-0. I don't know. But Luke Fickell did so good at Cincinnati And Wisconsin has a winning reputation. It's not like he left Cincinnati to go to Wisconsin when they were struggling to be a 4-8 team. Wisconsin was already, a perennial powerhouse as far as not being a powerhouse and winning national championships, but a powerhouse as far as, they're an 8 or 9 win team every year. Through the Barry Alvarez years, through the Gary Anderson years, through the Paul Chryst years, you very rarely saw a season where Wisconsin didn't win 8 games. So if you've got a team that's already winning an average of 8 games a year, and they're bringing in a coach that's already winning, it pretty much looks like, from the outside looking in, well, Luke Fickell's a winner. He's going to a program that's a winner. He'll keep winning. And so far, it just hasn't happened. So because of that reason, I gave Illinois the win against Wisconsin. But if they lose that game, it wouldn't surprise me. But, for Illinois, I believe personally the floor is 7-5, and I think the ceiling is 10-2. But I think 10-2 is very highly doubtful. But I think that's the ceiling. So I kind of sort of went in between and picked them going 9-3. Which for Illinois, if they go 9-3 every year, Brett Bielema is going to be their coach as long as he wants to be. Any thoughts on any of this? Please feel free to let me know. Also, I'll watch it, but it won't be when it comes on because I have 2 wrestling shows that day. So I'll be gone from 8 o'clock that morning, and I probably won't get back home till about 12:30 or 1 o'clock that Sunday morning. So because I'll be traveling all day, there's just no way that I'll be able to watch it live. It's just not possible. And I may not watch it on that Sunday because I'll, of course, get up and go to church. And then after church, I want to go back and watch the NXT premium live event that's going to take place that Saturday afternoon. And then I want to watch Evolution, which will take place that Sunday afternoon. So by the time I go to church, leave church, watch Great American Bash, then watch Evolution, it's going to just about be time to go to bed Sunday night. So I don't know when I'll watch Main Event, but I will watch it, but it won't be live when it's on because I will not be home. I've got to go to one afternoon wrestling show and then leave there and go to an evening wrestling show. So I'll be gone all day long. If given the option to sit on my pancake butt and watch wrestling or go referee a wrestling show, I'm going to pick going to ref a show all day long because one day I'll be old and won't be able to do it anymore. And when that happens, I don't want to look back and say, well, remember that time I could have went to a show, but instead I decided to sit home on my butt and watch wrestling? I don't want to do that. I want to do it as long as I can so that when I can't do it anymore, I can look back and say, well, I done it as long as I could, as much as I could. But any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. When I was younger, I trained as an ice cream man. I went to Sunday school. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.